Any Joel Fitzgibbon, you've been attending ALP national conferences and state conferences for many, many years. How do you rate this one in terms of toughness, not only for delegates but the leader as well?
Every conference is important. There's no doubt about that. It projects to the Australian community the Labor Party's view of the world, and I believe we'll have some robust discussion over the course of this weekend, but I believe we'll produce outcomes which will be well received by the Australian people.
But this one is a little bit different, isn't it? Because it's the last one, or it's expected to be the last one before the next election. What you decide this weekend is what you'll have to wear, taking it to the people at the next election.
Yes, it will be the last one prior to the election, and yes, that does make it important. But I think Bill Shorten will perform well. He comes here with some pretty firm messages. People want to know what their leaders stand for, and I think at the end of this conference, people will be in no doubt what Bill Shorten stands for. Yes, conferences are in a sense becoming a little bit more challenging because rightly I think we've democratised the party. We've opened it up more to rank and file members, so no one really controls the party in the way they did in the old days, and that does make it challenging, but it also, I think, makes for better theatre and for better outcomes.
Now, we've heard a lot over the last 48 hours about Bill Shorten and the boats turnback policy, but there are a lot of other policy debates, not least the issue of gay marriage, which, as I understand it, will be on tomorrow. You've been an opponent of this, but it seems as though a compromise might be worked out. Is that what you're hopeful of?
Well, I've been an opponent of a binding vote. I voted against same-sex marriage in the Parliament some 3 years ago, but I announced a number of months ago that if it came before the Parliament again, I'd be voting in favour of the proposition. I do believe there's been a shift in the community, but also, of course, a shift globally. But I think it would be a mistake for people to attempt to bind people who have been voting in a certain way for many years. I think this is a matter of conscience, and I think the change is inevitable, and I believe it would be best to allow people to vote on their conscience because I think that will deliver for those advocating change more quickly than would otherwise be.
You have a bit of interest too in the climate policy debate. You represent, if the last time I looked, a big coal mining area, and indeed the climate change policy that Bill Shorten is advocating may lead to the loss of coal mining jobs. Do you think that will you be putting into the platform, or trying to put into the platform, some clause about job guarantees or transition out of these jobs to other jobs?
Well, the thing that really threatens coal mining jobs well into the future is not the settings of the Australian government, but the changing habits of our trading partners. China, for example, a big consumer of Hunter Valley coal, over a 10-year period will go from an 80% dependence on coal-fired generation to a 60% dependence. And that's true of most nation states which are tackling climate change. So we need to be ready for what's ahead. Now, an aspirational goal to 50% is a good thing to have. Doesn't mean we'll get there, it means we're going to try. But electricity demand, energy demand in Australia will continue to rise. So there will always be plenty of market for coal-fired generation. But over time, over the long run, that will decline. And look, I think most of my coal mining mates, while they'd be happy for their sons or daughters to work in a coal mine, aspire for something different for their children. And I think the Labor Party does need to look long term. This does not or will not impact on coal mining in terms of jobs over the foreseeable future.
Now, in your portfolio responsibilities, the Shadow Agriculture Minister, you'll be taking interest too, I assume, in the debate on the free trade agreements that Australia has entered into. Bit of a dichotomy, isn't it? Because some aspects of the trade deals are good for Australia, but there is the resultant issue of whether or not they'll be bad for Australian jobs.
Steve, the Labor Party began this process. We are the party of liberalisation. We started the arrangements with the negotiations with China and Japan and South Korea. We own the ASEAN deal, for example, the CER deal with New Zealand. We are the party of free trade. Yes, some people have some, and of course that's a wonderful thing for Australian agriculture, which is one of the reasons I support it so strongly.